So, as you guys know, all memes aside, the Azov Battalion's bad. Nazis on Ukraine's side. It's not good. Nazis are bad, actually. And I've already talked about how the Azov Battalion's prominence is massively overstated as a way of justifying imperialist action against Ukraine from a much larger fascist power. So I'm not going to get into that too much here. But why does the Azov Battalion exist? Well, it's pretty easy to see where the far right in Russia gets its backing. It's pretty obviously far right nationalist resentment against Soviet occupation. I mean, this goes all the way back to like before World War II. That's pretty much the thrust of it, If you look at most far right groups in a country, there's usually some kind of, well, actually, there's always a socio-political justification for it at some point in history. Now, justification in terms of like explaining why it's there, not justification in terms of like that makes it morally right. It's never morally right. But if you look through, like, you can look at Hamas, or you can look at ISIS, or you can look at the Taliban, and like it's pretty clear usually, like, okay, well, hey, this happened because like borders were broken up by imperialists. This happened because of the invasion. This happened that you can usually look into something, and something that I'm really, really hoping for here is, okay, the far right in Ukraine, while overstated, is still a thing that exists over there, and they've always been justified in their existence, to them at least, in the idea that they're like the most aggressive bulwark against Russian invasion. But who's leading the anti-Russian occupation? It's not the fascists. It's not the neo-Nazis. They're nowhere to be found. They're worthless. It is the pro-democracy, liberal back of Ukraine. It's a liberal president, Zelensky, a Jew, no less. It's a sentiment which is motivated not by nationalism, really not by nationalism. The language that I'm seeing, not only from people on social media but from the Ukrainian government itself, is not one of national supremacy. Really, seriously, look at Ukrainians, look at the people of Ukraine, look at everyone, look at Zelensky himself. They're not talking about the innate inferiority of Russian people or the superiority of the Ukrainian people, not at all, really. They're mostly framing this as a tragic, act of aggression from Putin, that the Russian soldiers are underprepared, undermanned, low on morale, and don't want to be there, being forced to be there by a bloodthirsty tyrant, and the Ukrainians are just defending themselves. Even the language defending our land, which is justifiable if it's your land, which in Ukraine's case it is not being invoked so much as defending our people. And that's fine. Defending one's people, please don't kill me and my family, actually, as it turns out, a pretty good ethical justification. I want to watch this one more time because it's unimaginably moving. The Ukrainian Armed Forces recruitment advertisement is so meaningful to me because the language of it runs different to so much of what you've seen in other recruitment ads, like what you see in Russia, where all the Russian recruitment ads are like, come be a big manly man. But this right here is a distinctly anti-fascist and even, I would argue, an anti-nationalist military advertisement. And I mean that sincerely. It's not jingoistic. It's not about the supremacy of any group of people. It's not about being a real man. It's not about being a hero. It's about circumstances, unfortunately, driving you to defend yourself and your people when you need to. It is an anti-war recruitment ad. I'm the best man.
Дядя Юра, таксист. Я вчитель фізкультури.
Я студент-геолог.
У мене своя фірма.
Я кращий друг зі школи.
Я сусід, який завжди стукає по батареї.
Я єдиний син.
The only son. I maintain this. Not only is this by far the best recruitment advertisement I have ever seen in my life, this is also the most anti-fascist and anti-war recruitment advertisement I have ever seen in my life. And I feel like this right now is the spirit of the current Ukrainian defense. Because as much as the Ukrainian military has been absolutely full of gigachads, their national sentiment is not being driven by expansionism, it's not being driven by supremacy, it's not being driven by bloodlust, it's being driven by an honest and earnest desire for people to live in peace. That I think is honest, straightforward, and I sincerely hope that moving forward for Ukraine, this is what is remembered as the driving force behind Ukraine's defense, you know? In 10 or 100 years, when they think, what protected us? What kept us safe? It was not the fascism. It was not the rabid anti-Russian types. It was not the racists. It was not the militants. It was good, honest, average people who rose up to defend, their freedom. That is the sentiment I want preserved. That is the attitude. Hold on. Okay, Vosh, I love Ukraine, but when the US literally did something like this with an uwu-sensitive animated ad, you lambasted them for that. How is this any different? Please no ban. I'm genuinely asking. Huh? Because the animated US recruitment ad that we looked at wasn't an appeal to, a solemn and unfortunate need to defend your people. It was just a way of incorporating woke imagery and language and sentiments into a pre-existing and emphatically unchanged war-like recruitment advertisement, okay? When you're recruited into the U.S. military, you're recruited into empire. Nobody is attacking the U.S. military. What they were doing was cynically touching on, modern aesthetics, Steven Universe watchers or whatever, to get them involved. This was not a cynical advertisement. Listen, okay? If this was made by a cynic, this was made by the most sincere cynic imaginable.